Joined by Senator Tom Cotton from the great state of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, I like to give back to my regular guests like you, so I want you to know. Do you happen to know who John August Arvedson is?
You've stumped me on that one, Hugh.
Well, he discovered lithium. And do you know the periodic table symbol for lithium? Because you'd better know in a hurry.
I think it's Li, isn't it?
It is Li.
We got a lot of it down in
from
South
News
Arkansas.
Items' first story this morning. Researchers at the U.S. Geological Survey and the Arkansas government announced on Monday that they had found a trove of lithium, a critical raw material for electric vehicle batteries, in an underground brine reservoir in Arkansas. With the help of water testing and machine learning, the researchers determined there might be 5 million to 19 million tons of lithium, more than enough to meet all of the world's demand for the metal, in a geological formation known as, and I love this, the Smackover Formation. So, Senator Cotton, when did you learn about the Smackover Formation?
Well, Hugh, Smackover is a great little town in South Arkansas, and we've been producing oil and gas in South Arkansas going back more than a century. Not on large numbers, certainly nothing like what you see in the Permian Basin today or the Bakken Formation up in North Dakota, but pretty steadily. I would quibble a little bit with that New York Times story, which I read earlier today. It's not as if it was suddenly discovered out of the blue. You know, the smart geologists and drillers and other folks down there in the oil patch have always said, look, we've known that we've got these resources down there. We've always known that. It's just a matter of the technology to produce it. I think that's the story of hydraulic fracturing over the last 20 years in America, and soon to be the production of lithium in South Arkansas and perhaps a few other places in America, of American ingenuity and inventiveness and entrepreneurial spirit. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris and the Democrats would kill off if they win this election. I mean, she said,
yeah, that's the thing the story doesn't tell you. You're going to need a lot of permits to go get the lithium.
Yeah, tons of permits. This is an active issue in South Arkansas about how they're going to produce it, which technology is going to be best, what the royalty rates are going to be. But the one thing everyone in South Arkansas agrees is this would be great for our economy. Whatever you think about electric vehicles, and most folks in Arkansas aren't the biggest fans of them, lithium is needed for every modern device, for your smartphone, for your tablet, for your computer, for your refrigerator, and everything else in your life. So this is a huge economic opportunity for South Arkansas. But the Democrats will, as they usually do, find yet another reason not to pursue this opportunity. It's just like you see in the energy world. They wanted to replace coal with natural gas, but then natural gas became viable, and that's fossil fuel, so we can't do that. So let's use windmills instead. Well, windmills, take up too much air, space in the skyline off Martha's Vineyard, and so on and so forth. With Donald Trump and Republicans, everyone from South Arkansas to Martha's Vineyard and in between will have a fair shake to get ahead and lead a high quality of life. With the Democrats in office, they will not. They will continue.
I also want to point out the Chi-Coms had this market. Didn't the Chinese have this market cornered into a way that it was a bottleneck?
In the processing and manufacturing, yes. It's important to note that lithium, like most so-called rare earth elements, are not really all that rare. It's not like, say, oil, which is concentrated in certain places in the world, and there's lots of countries that are not especially friendly to the United States that have a lot of oil. Rare earth elements are fairly common in terms of the mining, whether in the United States or in friendly nations. What's not common, and this is a pure failure of policy, is the manufacturing and processing of it. So in addition to finding the right technology to produce all the lithium in South Arkansas, we as a country need to make a major investment in manufacturing and processing lithium and other rare earth elements. It makes absolutely no sense to produce lithium in South Arkansas and then ship it to China so they can turn it into a finished product. We need to do that here in the United States. That's good for our national security. It also provides thousands and thousands of high-paying jobs.
Now, Senator, this brings me in a roundabout way to one of the main reasons people should vote for Trump. I've already voted. I'm done. Hopefully I won't get more pitches from people to give them money, because I voted for Hung Kao yesterday, of course, for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And I posted it, and I hope everyone goes out and does early voting. But I'm looking forward to the renewal of the regulatory reform efforts of the Trump era, where for every new regulation promulgated, two had to be stripped off. They actually exceeded that. We need to cut the federal government in half, in my view. Do you think the first reconciliation, if we win the Senate, we being the GOP, hold the House and elect Donald Trump, that the first reconciliation will empower him to strike at the regulatory state, both directly and indirectly?
I think there's no question, Hugh, that it will. Just to give you one example, in the Democrats' big budget bill, they hired tens of thousands of new IRS agents to harass small businesses and working families. That's just one example of how those bills can empower the regulatory state and how our bill could empower individuals and businesses and entrepreneurs. But you're right more broadly that when we had Donald Trump in office, we didn't just have lower taxes for families and businesses. We had a government that was focused on unleashing the American free enterprise system as opposed to creating a wet blanket of regulations to lay a profit. And that's exactly what the Democrats have done for the last 4 years.
Now, Senator, yesterday I had your colleague, Senator Vance, on, who I think is going to be our next vice president. We talked at the end of the conversation about the China threat and whether or not Xi was a Leninist or a fascist. And JD thinks he's a fascist. I think he's a Leninist. In the end, we both agree he's an enemy. JD talked about reforming acquisition at the Pentagon. Is that even possible?
Oh, sure, Hugh, it's possible. And there are some fairly clear ways to go about it. Take the problem we have with our munitions right now, the so-called empty bins or empty magazine problem, that any kind of major conflict with Taiwan, we might run out of munitions in just a week or two. These are technologically advanced weapons. It's not a bazooka for World War II, but it's also not a stealth bomber. It's not an aircraft carrier. With the right kind of leadership and initiative there to focus on it and drill down on the problem, with some new legal authorities from Congress, like buying more multi-year contracts or getting more foreign countries to buy our munitions, making it easier for them, therefore creating more demand, we could substantially increase production rate. Likewise, there's lots of great companies out there that have broken into the defense space, in part because they have iconoclastic billionaires who are willing to break China at the Pentagon. You think about Palmer Luckey and Anduril or Elon Musk and SpaceX. It shouldn't take an iconoclastic billionaire if you have a good idea, especially if you have commercially available off-the-shelf technology, to get into the Pentagon and sell your technology that's going to keep our soldiers safe and help them fight and win our country's wars, and therefore deter them in the first place. It will take some strong directed leadership, though, in the same way that Bob Gates came in the middle of war and was focused on things like getting mine-resistant vehicles to the field or cutting down medevac times. It really will take leadership there that makes that a very high priority.
Now, Senator, I know you've been on the road for your colleagues who are running for the Senate, either for re-election like Deb Fischer and Ted Cruz and Rick Scott, who are the three long shot targets that Democrats have put circles around. But also, I'm going to be in Ohio tonight with Bernie Moreno and then up in Philadelphia on behalf of Dave McCormick on Thursday night. I am curious, how do you feel about the Senate right now? We'll come to the Trump race at the end, but what about the Senate?
Hugh, I feel very good. I was down with Rick Scott yesterday. I've been in both those states you mentioned, getting ready to go on a final blitz here, basically around all of our states. Hugh, you can look at the polls, but, sometimes it's just better to look at people's actions. When I was up in Pennsylvania, I saw Bob Casey running an ad talking about how he was working with Donald Trump on trade. He was right there. He was Donald Trump's wingman. When I was in Wisconsin, I saw an ad of Tammy Baldwin. She got Trump to sign her bill. Her bill working with Donald Trump to protect American manufacturing jobs. Hugh, I haven't yet seen a Republican ad talking about how we worked with Kamala Harris on this, that, or the other thing. So that tells you all you need to know about these races. Or for that matter, Hugh, I noticed that Chuck Schumer's super PAC just dumped a bunch of money into the New Mexico Senate race. Well, they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't think it was close.
Oh, what now? Give me a little hope for Hung Kao, because if we elected senators the old way, the legislatures did it, and we did it on merit and a little bit of diversity, there really is no more unusual Senate candidate who on merit would be in the United States Senate than Hung Kao. Prayer there? Hopeful there? What is that?
Well, I think every Virginian Republican should certainly get out and vote early for Donald Trump and Hung Kao like you did. Hung is a great American. He's an immigrant here. He went on to work in the Navy. He worked with Special Operations Forces. He'd be a very strong voice for the people of Virginia. And like I said, I would encourage everyone to get out and vote early. For that matter, in every state, get out and vote early. I know, like you obviously, you're going to miss a vote, but when people like you get out and vote early, it allows these campaigns to cross your name off their list, and then they can move down to those voters who maybe don't get out and vote in every single election. So Hung's a great candidate in Virginia, and let's remember Glenn Youngkin got elected in Virginia just 3 years ago. So it is not a deep blue state. It's a state that can be won, especially if we have a Republican turnout.
And Ed Gillespie almost beat Mark Warner. I mean, it was the missed opportunity. Let me close with this. You talk to the former president frequently. He's a master closer. He knows how to close, and he's closing in Pennsylvania at McDonald's in the Steelers game. What do you think right now, Senator Cotton?
Well, I think Trump's going to win. I think all the omens are pointing in this direction. I mean, he's even got Hugh Hewitt speaking favorably of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But
True.
I just think more and more people remember that times were good with Donald Trump. I understand that some voters, mostly Democrats, they don't like his style, the way he talks. That's fine. But most Americans like low prices and high wages and a secure border and a peaceful world. And they look at what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have delivered, which is the exact opposite of that. And also, they have a lot of questions about Kamala Harris, the big switcheroo 3 months ago. And she hasn't done anything to allay those concerns. In fact, I think she's heightened those concerns, and you see it almost every single day.
A quick last question, Senator, because you're on Senate Intel. We've had this leak of the Israeli Air Force plans. It's treasonous. Have you been briefed on it yet at Senate Intel?
I haven't been briefed, Hugh. No, we've been out of session. I haven't been in the secure information space. I don't want to confirm or deny the authenticity of those documents, but I can say this. We've had a year of leaks hostile to Israel, and you shouldn't be surprised that you have those anti-Israel leaks from this administration, because they've staffed their administration from top to bottom with a bunch of students for justice in Palestine radicals, from Kamala Harris's national security advisor down to the briefcase carriers and the coffee makers. Those are the kind of anti-Israel radicals in this administration, and in 2 months, they'll all be gone.
That is why. I mean, if you're a friend of Israel, if you're an American Jew, or even a person like me who's not Jewish but a strong supporter of Israel, go out and vote for Donald Trump, because we've got to get this administration cleaned out of the pro-Iranian appeasement crowd.